The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away. From movies to books, TV shows, and more, we're looking at the deeper themes and meanings found in the Star Wars universe. Be sure to follow The Secrets of Star Wars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your favorite podcast app, or on the StarQuest YouTube channel. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. On X, we are at SQPN, or on Instagram, where we are at StarQuest Network. And be sure to get your official Secrets of Star Wars gear at sqpn.com/merch. I'm your host, Patrick Mason, and joining me tonight on the panel is Thomas Salerno. Hey, Thomas.
Hello, Pat.
And joining us as well is Jeff Hecker.
Hey, Pat.
Hey, Jeff. Hey, Jeff. All right, welcome back to Secrets of Star Wars, and we are talking about Visions Season 3, starting with the first episode, Duel, Payback.
This time it's personal. That wasn't in the script either. The Force willed that to happen.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. All right. So this is, of course, a sequel episode. I believe the first sequel episode we have in Visions to a previously made Visions episode.
Yes.
So Visions Season 1 began with a very interesting, striking in a lot of different ways, tour de force visual, in my opinion, episode called Duel. And Season 3 has come back to revisit Duel and the universe around the main character, the Ronin. But first, we'll talk a little bit about Visions as a whole. So if you remember Visions 1, Season 1, I guess we can put it now, since we're in Season 3, was entirely Japanese animation by a variety of different studios. And if you're a student or a fan of Japanese animation, you'll recognize the different varieties, different animation styles that were used. You know, my favorite was kind of the Astro Boy version of Jedi Astro Boy we got.
Oh, yeah.
That was a lot of fun. That wasn't necessarily my favorite Visions episode, but I that's one of my favorite animation styles. It's just, I think it strikes the balance between cartoony and non-cartoony. But and then Visions Season 2, we sort of reached beyond Japan to the rest of the world. So we got a number of different animation studios, you know, ones from Ireland, ones from Brazil, from Africa, from a variety of different locations to give us their versions of sort of these Star Wars stories, which of course are all non-canonical, right? They're kind of carte blanche, giving the artist in the studio, you know, here's the general overlay of Star Wars that you know and love. Give us a story about it, whether or not you think it's, you know, it really works. And some of them were more canonically sound than others. I'm remembering specifically the Twins episode from
Oh my gosh. Not one of my favorites, but it is very bonkers to its credit.
Very anime, extremely anime. You know, the double made Death Star for the two psychically, you know, Force twins. Yeah. Coming up on season 3, they've returned to completely Japanese animation studios. And I think because of that, they've allowed the creation of sequels. So we have a sequel for this episode. We're going to be talking about Duel, now Duel Payback. This time it's personal. We have The Ninth Jedi from the first season has a sequel episode, and then The Village Bride. So if you remember those, we will be discussing those. Our current plan for this season is to discuss a single episode per episode, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And do about a once every couple week cadence, and hopefully that'll take us into Shadow Lord Maul or Maul Shadow Lord. Is it Maul Shadow Lord or is it Shadow Lord Maul?
It's Maul Shadow Lord.
Okay.
And have we seen anything from that yet? There's not like a teaser or something?
No, they showed some footage at Celebration, but you had to be there. They Celebration this year in Japan. They did not release it to the public, but I've seen it from people uploading it before it gets taken down. And so so I imagine the trailer's probably going to be coming out in the probably early next year because it seems like if they might do a spring release for it, like March or so, because it's kind of when they released the Bad Batch. And if they want to stick to kind of that, although I mean, I guess they skipped this year for that, for animated for that, but they might do that and then lead up to Mandalorian and Grogu and then have Ahsoka season 2 in the fall. So, so I'd imagine a trailer will come out, but they've put out some promotion, some images and things like that that you can find that were put out by them. So,
okay. Because I think the standard we put out last episode was that if there's no trailer, we don't actually think it's going to happen.
Well, that was for movies.
Yeah, because with they've been more consistent with the television shows. Although I feel like they have canceled at least a couple of them. But yeah, with movies, it's just like, no, don't trust anything they say until there's a trailer.
Right.
Yeah. So hopefully Visions will take us to Shadow or Maul Shadow Lord.
Yeah.
Right.
The only one we might combine Visions on is the last one, because if you've seen it, it's a very interesting visual spectacle, but there's not much. There's no dialogue in the final episode of Visions of this season, so we might combine the last two into one podcast.
We'll figure out if the visuals are enough for us to talk about for an hour. We'll see. You never know. So, all right. So let's dig into this one. We've got the Duel, and we're going to recap the season 1 episode and then go into the Payback recap. And Jeff, I'm going to throw it over to you.
All right. So for the season 1 Duel recap, and these are short episodes. They're only about 20 minutes, so very short recap, unlike some of my prior recaps. But for season 1, just the Duel, it was in an alternate universe, a former Sith Ronin enters a village that is being extorted by another Sith. The Ronin duels the Sith and claims the Kyber crystal, showing he has collected many. He gives a red crystal to the young village chief, saying it can ward off evil, and then he kind of, like in samurai movies, will go, like Ronin movies, will go off onto the next adventure. And then the recap for this one, for Payback, is a Jedi cyborg, the Grandmaster, is the leader of a Jedi sect who broke away from the Order, hunting down the Ronin who had injured him in the past. Another Sith, a Nissan, encounters the Ronin and they prepare to duel, but are interrupted by the Grandmaster. They are saved by some Ewoks, and together with the gambling hall proprietor, draw the Crusaders in. The Grandmaster duels the Ronin, but is slain by a Nissan. And their temporary truce ended, the Ronin and a Nissan start to duel again.
All right, so thank you, Jeff. Both of these were done in the same animation style, which is, the way I would term it, it's kind of a black and white-ish, with the glowing bits still colored. What did you guys think about this animation style, both in and of itself and then in comparison to a lot of the other animation styles we presented so far over the course of Visions.
When this first came out, like as the first Visions episode that we had ever seen back in the first season, I was struck by how much it reminded me of like old Japanese cinema, you know. And of course, the first thing you think of is Kurosawa. But, you know, just Japanese cinema in general, black and white, you know, from the 1950s, and all the film grain sort of filters that they put over this, and also combined with a kind of sketchbook style to the characters. And I found that the characters move in a very interesting way. The way that parts of their body and clothing are shaded, it moves in a kind of 2D, 3D way. I can't describe it properly, but it was neat. I liked it. It was a neat effect. Because it combined that sort of like Japanese sketch art with also black and white samurai movies. And it was very visually striking. And I don't know if there's any, if either of you know of examples of anime that are done like this, but yeah, I was glad that they continued that into the sequel.
Yeah, I think the closest thing I can get to in popular media would be if you watched Into the Spider-Verse and the character Hobie, who is the Spider-Punk.
Oh, yes.
Is animated at that different frame rate. And his character is sort of animated, you know, more, I don't know, sort of the explosive animation, where it's sort of, there's a lot of different edges. And so his character is sort of a little phased differently from the others. And you can kind of, and that, if you took that and made all the characters like that, that's kind of what it feels like. Like and it does remind me a lot of the sort of that old cinema where it's real grainy and you can see the scratches on the film and all that. It hasn't been, either it's been done that on purpose to make it look old, or it hasn't been remastered yet to make it look shiny and new. What about you, Jeff? What do you think?
Yeah, so the visual style is very interesting because as y'all mentioned, it's black and white for the most part, except for, I think in the first season it was only the lightsabers that were colored. I could be wrong. The blasters that we saw the bolts may have been colored as well. But in the only lightsabers colors in the first one were red because it was a Sith versus a Sith. So it was a very striking black and white offset by the red. And then in this one, there's more colors because we have, you know, Jedi, even though they might be rogue Jedi, have their lightsabers in blues and greens. And we also start to seeing, you know, colors of engines, like the engine glows, and other lights and blaster bolts are colored. So it brings a little bit of a more color to it. But the visual style is very, like, it's very striking. And you're right, there's nothing like it in the other Visions. They're all very colorful, you know, as anime typically is, colored very well, colored very vibrantly, and especially compared to the next one that comes after this one in the series. And I also wanted to comment that the studio Kamikaze Duga is, they don't have a huge filmography like some of the other anime studios that make Visions, but probably one of the notable things I think they worked on, I don't know if they were the sole animation house, was the Batman Ninja movie from a few years ago. So a very different style than this, but, you know, still set in like a Japanese style a setting, you know, because of course that takes place in Japan, I believe, if I remember correctly. But yeah, no, the style of this is very interesting. Like you said, Thomas, it's almost like they're like sketches that are kind of not quite completely penciled, you know, outlined and penciled in, and they're kind of moving and shifting, you know, so it's almost, you know, what made me think of as the music video from the 80s,
Take On Me.
Yes, Take On Me. Yeah. So it was almost like that, in a lot of ways.
Sorry.
So But yeah, no, overall, and of course, I mean, we had some cool visuals, like, only like you could do in this. Like in the first season, there was some cool stuff, but in this one, you have two ATs in tandem that are a bar. You have, scuba Ewoks. You have you have like the Crusader Jedi. Their like masks and helmets are very, very like robot like, but also samurai like. So, and of course the Ronin is very much looks like a Ronin as depicted in many anime and movies and stuff. So yeah, just overall the art style is very, like, it's very distinct but very cool. And I hope that we see, another adventure in this, and I would love for them to make, a full series about the Ronin and his adventures.
Yeah, and there's a novel, I believe, too, starring the Ronin, but I haven't read it.
I haven't read it either, and I've heard that this kind of retcons what happens to the Ronin in that book, but I could be wrong. That's one of the, and it's not a canon novel in Star Wars, because this one is, but which is interesting because it's one of the few Disney era novels that is not in the canon with everything else. But I've not read it, but I have heard it kind of retcons things to a little bit, or or maybe a lot. I don't know.
Right, and I think for visual animation, this one really does do a lot with the idea of light and dark, and especially color, right? Because it's so grainy. It reminds me I want to say it was season 2, episode 1, where you had there's a female protagonist, and it's kind of 3D animation-ish, not quite, but a lot of it is done in black and white, and the colors are very symbolic and important because she's kind of riding the line between Jedi and Sith. And we kind of see that also play out over the course of this as well, with the Ronin, sort of what he is doing and where he falls into the grand scheme of, kind of what the Force is going for here. And I kind of like the addition of the colors you get it from the, like you said, the blaster bolts, you get it from the lightsabers, you get it from the engines, you get it from, buttons and little stuff that would light up. And it's a lot like using the visual to showcase what your ear would hear. Because a lot of those things would be high sound, right? And so it's pulling your attention to those things. It's sort of showcasing the fact that we as humans have a tendency to hone in on both bright stuff and loud stuff, for survival capability. and snakes and spiders, basically, and and tigers and whatnot. And so it's a very interesting way to portray that visually. And I wonder if you're supposed to be seeing kind of the world as the Ronin sees it, where he's always kind of, especially in the first episode, where he is always portrayed as, or where he is portrayed as kind of just a guy passing through that gets hit in the head by what's going on in the town. But I do want to ask you guys about that. So that was the impression I got from the first episode from the Duel, was that he was just passing through town, and then this thing happens there, right? And he feels the need to intervene for, in part because his droid gets threatened. And in the second episode, it's portrayed that he's actually like on the hunt, and the droid is kind of a something that draws out who he's hunting. And I wonder if we pull that theme back to the first episode, if he's there on purpose.
Yeah.
Like he knows the extortion is going on, and he's using this as a way to get at that. What did you guys think about that?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that in terms of a Star Wars story that shows us the Force from the point of view of a kind of Sith-aligned character, or a character who at least has been Sith-aligned and holds on to maybe some of that philosophy, it does it, I think, a lot better than the Acolyte did. From my point of view. From a certain point of view, I think it did it a lot better than that, because I couldn't stand the way the Acolyte handled that. And, we, especially in this sequel episode, since we actually have him confronting a Jedi, and so those, a fallen Jedi, but someone who still identifies as a Jedi. So that whole kind of corrupted Jedi versus a Sith angle, I felt was handled much better here in this non-canonical story. But tangent aside, I think you're right, Pat, that I felt even in the first episode, without having seen the sequel, that he was on the hunt, because he had all of those red kyber crystals, and he really seems to have almost planned out what happened. Like he was waiting for the extortion to happen to that town, because he leaves the droid with the little Celestin fella.
Yeah, the chef.
And says hey, fix him by the time this pot boils. Because, he needed him at that point to release the little whistling bird dart things that, distract the Sith and kill all the other stormtrooper people. So yeah, I kind of, even in that first episode, I got the feeling that he's not just passing through here, or at least he hoped he would encounter a Sith here, even if he didn't know for sure.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Thomas, that that was the impression I got, is that he was because he's hunting kyber crystals for, and it's not really clear as to why. It could be that he's, as part of his, if he regrets being a Sith, if he did something in his past that he's started to turn toward the light but didn't quite get there, if he's more in the gray, is he just trying to take out Sith just to take them out so that they're not a threat to anyone, or is there kind of a purpose to his collecting? Because he does leave the kyber crystal in the first episode with the young village, with the village chief, who's just a boy. I think he's supposed to be the son of the village chief who had died or something, and he inherits the title. So I think he was hunting Sith on purpose, and was, maybe he heard a rumor there was the Sith around, and he just set things in motion so that he could be in the right place at the right time to get that crystal. And that's what it seems like in this one too, is that he was, because he's in this gambling den with his droid, and his droid catches them cheating. The house is cheating, so
the house is cheating.
I know. But that draws, that sends the proprietor out to send his enforcer, who's a Sith, and that, and that's what it seems like, that's his purpose there, is to find the Sith and kill her or collect a crystal or whatever the case is. And I also want to point out the proprietor is an Anzellan, who's one of the Babu Frick aliens.
Yep. It took me a while for that to click, because they were showing him at first from such tight angles that I couldn't tell that he was a little mini guy at first.
Yeah. It really wasn't until he was strapped to the front of the Wookiee.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wait a minute, he is tiny.
Yeah.
So,
and speaking of alien identities for characters, it was the other Sith in this. Is she a Twi'lek?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I think so. And she just looks like it, but they,
she keeps her hair up.
Well, they animate.
Yeah.
They animate her so that her, her Leku are all, like you do in anime. Your hair gets, for those of us who have hair, or like myself, as hair is going away fast. I'm jealous of that long hairstyle.
Yeah,
like Leku in a bun, that seems uncomfortable. But who am I to judge? I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
In a bun with lightsaber pins. I don't.
It's the pain that fuels her power.
Yeah, that's
constant pain.
Yeah, that sounds very Sith. Yeah.
So yeah, well, and she identifies him right off the bat as the Sith hunter, right? Mm-hmm. And so he's obviously got some kind of reputation. System-wide, galaxy-wide, we're not really sure. So I think, it was always kind of a question in the back of my mind how much the first episode kind of incidents were planned and how much of it was his, he was a Ronin, a samurai wandering and just taking down Sith as he found them. And this really seems to point to no, he's sort of taken this on as a mission for some reason, right? We don't necessarily know the reason. We obviously get a lot more dialogue from him in this episode. What did you guys think about that? He's a much more verbose character, at least in my mind. It seemed like he talked a lot more, or maybe it was just there was more dialogue overall in this episode than there was in the first one. And I think that plays about in the character of the whole episode. How did you guys feel about that? And comparing the first one to the second one.
I think it was good because, I mean, it was cool, to have like a minimalist dialogue episode in the first season, and have that be the duel. But then to do that again would, I think it opens the world up more if you have more characters playing off each other, and you can only do so much without talking. As we mentioned, there's a entire episode that doesn't have dialogue in this season. So I think having the more dialogue and having the characters play off each other was important to really open up the story. And if they want to do more with this character down the road, we want to get to know him. It's almost like, in a lot of ways, because of course Mandalorian is very samurai coded as well, or Ronin coded. So Din doesn't talk much at first, but as he opens up, like, it gets better and better. So I think having the character and just the world he's in open up more in terms of dialogue is a good good way to go.
Yeah, I agree, because I feel like the plot of the original Duel is very straightforward. Ronin comes to town, there's bandits and a ninja / Sith that, the Ronin samurai has to fight, and they fight, and the villagers, take back their town, and then that's really it. And in this, the plot is a bit more complex, and I feel like, like Jeff said, in order to open up the plot in that way, they need more character interaction, than just, we will fight, and then they fight, or whatever it is. So so I was glad to see more of that in this, and I don't think they overdid it too much. There was still a lot of excellent visual storytelling in this, and I especially liked, just like how in the first Duel you had the fight on the log, like a very visually interesting fight as the duel is taking place on this log that's going down the river that's going to end in a waterfall. I liked in this the duel on the AT-AT walkers as they are slowly being, toppling over the mountain, and then later when the first duel between the Ronin and the Grandmaster, which takes place on the upturned feet of one of the AT-ATs, which I thought was very visually interesting. This team knows how to use the setting as something dynamic to drive the plot, and I think that's cool.
Yeah, that was, I think, probably for me, that was the more interesting, or the more visually interesting fight was the one that happens on the AT-AT, just because you have the continuous motion of what they're standing on going on, and how that interplays into when they're going to interact with each other and how they're going to interact. I personally, originally it rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like the whole extra dialogue thing. I think it pushed it a little too into the silliness, especially with the Babu Frick character, the gambling den character. But I think the more I watched it, the more okay I got with it. It's sort of the expansion of this character. But the question, I think still remains in my mind is what is he really trying to do with this? Is he hunting Sith? because he doesn't like Sith? Is he hunting them to try and atone? We get a flashback to his background, an introduction of another seemingly key character, which is this Grandmaster character, who was a Jedi that he had fought before. So, what do we think about this new guy? I mean, he doesn't last the episode, but still, this sort of foray into the Ronin's past, and kind of display what's one of the things going on with the Jedi in this version of the galaxy.
I'm always interested in the kind of diversity of philosophy, Force philosophy, like rather than the dichotomy of Sith and Jedi. I've always been interested by, there's no other way for me to call them, but kind of schismatic groups off the Jedi and the Sith, because I think that's more realistic. That would happen. Views on this stuff would fracture. And I find it interesting that this character, who's clearly a Jedi who is severely wounded in the war, is now running his own group of mercenaries, seemingly, to also hunt down former Sith. And for him, it's one in particular who he wants to get at, the Ronin, because it was the Ronin who gave him his traumatic injuries. He lost his legs, part of his face, and seemingly a lot of the rest of his body. I mean, there's a Darth Vader quality to this character, yet he remains, he still identifies as a Jedi, even though he's leading this splinter group that calls itself the Crusaders.
Yeah, I was just going to say, too, he's very Vader-like, except, if Vader was a Jedi, but not really, because the Grandmaster is not really following, and at least in our normal, what we know Jedi to be, he's on a path of revenge, and
and yet he says, revenge, I don't take revenge. Revenge is, he keeps calling it justice. He says, but we'll probably get into it later. Is it really?
Yeah. But it was interesting how his instead of having big Sith armor and helmet and that kind of a thing, he's got a reconstructed face, but he can't speak normally. He has to speak through like the voice box thing, and that's also very reminiscent of samurai movies and things where characters wear masks over their face. So just kind of another kind of nod to that as well. And yeah, he was interesting too, because he's almost like the Ronin is more Jedi than Sith, and the Grandmaster is more Sith than Jedi at this point. But yeah, like we were saying, we don't know the Ronin's true motives. Is he trying to atone, like you said, Pat, or is he just
eliminating the competition?
Right. Or we see these,
there could be only one.
Yeah maybe that's the new like rule of one. There can be only one,
and like, or does he want to make some crazy lightsaber like a Nissan or these others? Because in the first season it was like the umbrella that had like the giant or had like all the lightsabers. In this one she's got like it was almost like I don't even know how to describe it, like a spider leg lightsaber kind of a thing.
And a lightsaber peg leg.
Yes, on a lightsaber peg leg. So I guess they just want Kybers in case so they can make these crazy lightsabers. I don't know.
Yeah. So, and I think that touches on one of the main themes we get through the course of the two episodes, is the revenge versus justice piece of it. And I think, how much does the duel in the first episode, the duel, feel like justice, right? Because the Ronin is effectively coming to the aid of this small town. He takes down the Sith, takes the Kyber crystal, and hands it off, right? And then we see he's seemingly potentially done this before. And so then the question starts to creep up, is it just justice? Because if he's just a lone gun who's wandering around and he comes to the aid of whoever's there, then it isn't, that's just right. That's just doing good. right? But then if he set the whole thing up, or he planned the whole thing out to take this other Sith down, then yeah, it's good. But then is it also revenge? And then what's the question about the Crusader or the Grandmaster? Is what he's doing, is it revenge, but is it also justice? Like, does the Ronin deserve to be taken out?
Right. Yeah. And I've recently been in the fiction that I've been reading recently, I've been drawn to these kind of morally gray, wandering characters, like The Witcher or something, where, like, sure, he goes around and kills monsters, but he's not a goody two-shoes. He's not, he does things that are morally gray and sometimes even morally reprehensible, yet he will save a village, from some vampire or whatever it is. So it's like, I find, and for that reason, I find the Ronin a very fascinating character because we don't really know his motives yet. Yet, as a character, we're drawn into that mystique, that mystery about him, and yet on the surface of things, he seems like at least the kind of character you want to root for, And maybe that'll change when we find out his motives and they pull the rug out from under us. But he seems like the kind of character that, even though he's a Sith, that you can kind of get behind what he's doing, and he's not the kind of character who like immediately backstabs the people who are his allies for the moment, which I also find interesting.
He kind of does at the end of this episode.
Well, he says, he's like, look, that was a temporary truce. The temporary truce is now over, but he didn't betray her while the truce was on.
Yeah, there was no betrayal of trust.
Right. Yeah.
And that their start of the fight at the end, they're both smiling. It was a very anime thing of like two enemies, like, we're gonna fight each other, but we're gonna be friends and allies by the end, because that's what happens.
One of us will throw the fight, and
that's what happens in anime. Is like your worst enemy becomes your best friend, and then you fight worst enemies, and they become your best friends, and it just
in DBZ that happens all the time. First with Piccolo, and then with Vegeta.
You're right.
Even Majin Buu becomes their friend.
Yeah. Frieza's about the only one of the only ones who doesn't become a friend.
Completely reprehensible.
But yeah, I'm just drawn into this character story, and it's one of those Visions universes that I would like to see more of, because and I also really like this kind of one-off adventure with a character like this, where instead of Monster of the Week, it's Sith of the Week or Fallen Jedi of the Week or whatever it is. I just think that's a neat formula, and I think it's a formula that works. So hey, if they want to make more of these, I'm down.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a formula that works. You just have to ask Inuyasha on the 4,000 episodes.
That's very true.
Oh no, it's another demon shard.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Replace demon shard with kyber crystal. These things write themselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I do really like that aspect that it could build in, and I think you touched on something, Jeff. This idea that if we get another one of these, there's a potential that the Twi'lek, former Enforcer Sith, may be a continuing character, right? That they could show up again. That it's not just going to be somebody he defeats. And it entirely depends on what his motivation is, right? Is he starting up? Is he trying to take Sith down because he sees the whole Sith thing as bad, and he wants to bring them to some kind of justice, or is he trying to atone for his own sins? And that, I think, interestingly enough, what we're getting here from a universal standpoint is a version of the galaxy where instead of there being an Inquisition hunting down Jedi, we have this crusade who's hunting down Sith.
Right.
And so if you turn that on its head, what does that look like? And I think that's kind of what we're getting, because we see these other Sith the two others that were portrayed, one is kind of a warlord trying to extort money from villages in sort of a mafia, very open, in the air mafia style way of doing it. And we have this other one who's just acting as an enforcer in a gambling den, trying to kind of stay low. And I think we see parallels with the Jedi hiding from the Inquisition throughout the course of the canon material. And so I wanted to get your guys' feeling on the comparison of, say, like the Grandmaster to the Grand Inquisitor as a character.
Yeah, again, this is why I think they do it better than Acolyte does it. To get this, this okay, and in the first duel, he says, "I'm not a Jedi." So it's not like this is a former Sith who's converted to the Jedi ways or anything. Presumably, he still, uses the dark side in some capacity. He's not rejected it. And to see from that kind of character's point of view, and to see, and encountering Jedi who are broken and are not acting in a very Jedi-like manner, who are acting more like Inquisitors than anything else, I just feel like this has done that better. It didn't give me, as we say in, Secrets of Middle-earth, flames across my face, like the Acolyte did,
lightsabers across your face.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And yeah, just the Grandmaster character is very interesting, because he's clearly this, scarred, both literally and metaphorically, scarred character who, like Darth Vader, is more machine than man. And you almost wonder, he's so driven towards this justice mantra that he repeats. Is that almost like his programming? He's acting in a very machine, methodical, like, justice. You will be brought to justice. And when the Ronin starts to question this programming, he almost the Grandmaster almost starts to, fizzle out. He starts to, seize up like a broken robot.
Yeah, the Grandmaster also seems like he's more cyborg than Vader even was, because at it seems that way, at least, because at the very end when he's dying, like it almost seems like he doesn't have he may just be like a brain inside this robot body now with maybe an arm or something, and the rest is completely droid, because you see his perspective when he's as he's dying, but it's almost like you're looking through like a video camera and not through eyes, and it's kind of fading, and he's kind of in that kind of like loop of, I forget exactly what he's saying as he's dying, I can't remember, he's repeating justice or something, but
I am a Jedi. He's like, I am a Jedi.
And it's just repeating, right? So it's like it's like he is shutting down. So yeah, I think you're right that he is very much more like a droid, and may have had to have been reconstructed with droid, or some kind of droid programming added to keep him going if he was that injured.
Yeah, I do wonder how much Band is in the machine at this point, because that seems to be, to me, and you guys can correct me if I'm reading this way off base, but it seems to me the Ronin's point in the fight, the reason he's taking the fight on, is not just because he gets attacked in the first one, so he doesn't have a choice, right? You're in the fight because you're in the fight. Like you didn't have a choice on that one. He gets jumped by this super fast or this
teleporting guy
who manages to actually cut him up, right, and take him out. And so then you have the second fight, right, and the second fight's planned, and the Ronins decided to take part of it, which means he's okay with fighting this non-Sith. But at the end of it, you get this feeling, at least I got the feeling, that he's doing it because he doesn't think the Grandmaster is really himself anymore. That this is more of a freeing action. Like, I'm going to set you free from what you've become because it's not right.
Yeah,
like
he says you're not a Jedi, you're not even a man.
Yeah.
He says, yeah.
Well, it's almost like he's he's setting himself free too in a way, because he's the Ronin is setting himself free too, because if he created the Grandmaster through his own action of fighting him in the first place, by killing him he's kind of freeing that part of himself. If he was holding on to any kind of guilt or any kind of feelings about it, it's he's able to let that go now. So yeah, and if they do bring the Ronin back, like I wonder if eventually we see his lightsaber turn from red to blue or something, like if he truly accepts the change that he's changed. I don't think they will go that way, but that could be interesting if they did.
Yeah, I don't see that either. It would be quite interesting if they did the Balin thing where his lightsaber kind of goes yellow or like orange. Yeah, because you have Balin as the fallen Jedi, but he's not Sith, right? He's not. At least what I got from the Ahsoka season was that he wasn't really invested in the whole Sith mythology or metaphysics. No. But he wasn't a Jedi anymore, and that was for sure. And so that's in part, that's one of the other things I kind of get from the Ronin is he's kind of sort of gone his own way and figured out his own style of dealing with the Force. And his lightsaber just happens to be red because that's where he started.
He does not parrot standard Sith ideology in any way. Yeah. And in fact, he talks to the Grandmaster about this idea this very Taoist idea where it's like, oh, you need true balance is the light and the dark. So it's almost like there's this concept of gray Jedi. It's almost like he's a gray Sith. He's abandoned the sort of totalitarian Sith ideology of, oh, the Jedi need to be eliminated, to no, there needs to be both light and dark, but it's almost like it's legitimate for me to walk the dark path as long as I acknowledge the light is there and is worthy of existing. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is that his philosophy, maybe?
I could see that. Yeah, I could see that being. Yeah, it's interesting him being a gray Sith, because the gray Jedi is a term from the old legends, and I don't know that it ever really fits, because if you're a Jedi, like at least in the terms that we know, the Star Wars, the Force is very black and white, light and dark. Right. I think a more accurate is this term is something from the canon, which is a way seeker, which I think is what Ahsoka kind of becomes. Just to touch on that for a second, where she's not beholden to the Jedi Council, but she's following the will of the Force. And this is an idea that came in from the Star Wars High Republic era of Jedi could go become a way seeker, where you kind of go, you kind of are a Ronin. You wander from place to place, finding, causes to fight for and to bring balance to whatever the situation is.
So he's like a Sith way seeker, almost.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. But that, because that's what a Ronin is. It's kind of a masterless samurai who wanders and doesn't have can kind of do whatever they want, and often are trying to reclaim some sort of honor, or like not lose honor, at least if they've had their honor taken from them for whatever reason.
Yeah, they're kind of they're. Historically, they operate in the same space as sort of late era knights in, the Christendom kind of time frame. And you get this sort of Don Quixote-esque, version of them as they get later and later. Like, they don't make any sense from a technological point of view, but they're always romanticized, right? They're Ronin, were these wanderers who pervade injustice. And the reality was, the vast majority of the disavowed samurai became part of the government, and the Ronin were the ones who refused to do that and just wanted to wander around and be masterless and have their swords, and oftentimes became bullies or
bandits.
Or yeah. And I actually think this is a pretty good pretty good taking that theme and putting it into a different setting, because that's exactly what you have kind of on display from the Sith here. If you were to disenfranchise all of the Sith, right? Maybe during a Sith Empire time frame where there are lots and lots and lots of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have these ones who decide to be masterless. What do they go do? And you have sort of the three examples we get so far that are on display, right? You had the warlord type one who was trying to set up their own sort of deal where they got to bully villages. You had the one trying to lay low, and the other one hunting the other one. So I really actually like the comparison to samurai, because I think it fits a lot better than a Jedi being compared to a samurai, even though I think in a lot of ways Lucas was sort of going for that feel.
Right. I've always felt the Jedi, fit better as kind of, like Knights Templar, which they are called in an early draft, the Jedi Knights Templar, an early draft of Star Wars. But yeah, was that kind of like, military religious order, which the samurai really were not. They weren't a religious order per se, really at all, since the Jedi do have that kind of religious order organization and served, whether they wanted to or not, as, a military arm of the Republic, I always felt that was more like what the Jedi were than samurai.
Yeah, and I like this kind of taking the Sith and doing them in this style. I think fits a lot better in my mind. I think it also takes a look at that sort of mid-level or balance or living force or gray Jedi or however you want to put it or a way seeker. Somebody who's trained in one of the two, and typically what we see is Jedi, and then kind of falls to the middle. Right. And what I'm saying is, if you have the light and the dark side and, the gray in the middle or whatever, I'm just calling it the middle. Most of the Vision episodes, when they encounter this conceptually, they always come at it from the Jedi side. And there have been several Vision episodes that have done that they've taken somebody and they talk about the balance and being balanced. And they're always coming from kind of a Jedi. And this comes at it from the Sith framework, and I really like that.
How does the Sith find balance?
Yeah,
that's a fascinating concept.
Right?
Yeah.
Can a Sith walk? What does it look like when a Sith decides to walk away from the Sith? Religion.
I always call it an ideology.
Yeah, ideology.
Yeah,
and then how does that play out in real time? And I really like this version of it.
Yeah, it's also very similar, like how some of the things we've seen in the Clone Wars from like Maul and Asajj Ventress and these characters who were Sith or trained by Sith, but kind of left that and went on their own. And for the most part, or to greater, like Maul was never a hero, but like never, he became more of an anti-hero to some extent, but he was never a hero, whereas Ventress did go more into the hero side, as we see her show up back in Tales and Bad Batch. So yeah, we've seen a few examples before of this. I think Jedi, we've seen like the biggest example of this would be like Ahsoka herself, who kind of leaves the Jedi Order, but still has lightsabers and still kind of follows the will of the Force and helps the rebellion and all that, like doing the right thing, but not beholden to, not beholden to the Order themselves. So.
Right. Or like a Kanan Jarrus before he really gets involved in like training Ezra,
right.
like, and he, gets back into the real Jedi way of life. Kind of before that, when he was kind of like in the New Dawn novel, where he's just kind of going around doing odd jobs and trying to lay low.
To stay alive, yeah.
Just trying to stay alive, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so going in a completely different direction, Ewoks.
Ewoks? No, never mind.
And not just regular Ewoks, scuba Ewoks.
Scuba Ewoks. Great.
Ewoks.
It was great to see them at their booby trapping best. That thing where the one wall of spikes just comes up and hits the guy. I'm like, okay. Or when they're literally impaling them with spears from underneath the wooden trestle. I'm like, okay, that's Ewoks for you.
Yep. I gotta admit that threw me for a loop. I saw the Ewok. I was like, what?
Yup nub.
Yeah.
So
besides the Ewoks, what other? I mean, this was both visually semi-spectacular, and it had a lot of other neat little things in it. What other stuff about the show, about this episode, did you guys like?
I actually liked a lot of the little side characters, like that protocol droid.
Yeah.
Very much like a demented C-3PO. I thought that was very funny. I also just liked the I for whatever reason I liked the appearance of the LAT gunships as the kind of cavalry of the Crusader group. Thought that was neat. Oh, and the Gungan shield generator thing makes an appearance. That was in color. By the way, the sort of pinkish, weird shield generator thing. But yeah, there's a lot. I would have to watch it again. There's so many little details that I'm sure I missed. So, what about you, Jeff? Did you?
Yeah, I mean, I like the Wookiee. Like, Wookiees are one of my favorite alien species, and it was cool to see. And he looked very much like Chewbacca. Like, had the same kind of bandolier that Chewbacca wears. So it was like, in my head, I'm like, could this, in an alternate universe, could this be Chewbacca?
I was waiting for the bowcaster to come out and be like, ah!
I thought he did have a bowcaster.
He might have,
yeah. Oh, and I like that the Anzellan, he gets around in a little mouse droid.
Yes,
which was
hilarious.
And is it just me, or does he need to be like? Because he at certain points he's on this thing where Arabesh letters are going across. Does he have to be on that to speak basic? Because the one point where he's separated from it, he's gibbering in Anzellan language.
That's what because if you listen to it, it almost sounds like there's a voice, like you hear the normal Anzellan high pitched kind of squeaking, and then you hear like the deep, mafia voice or gambling proprietor voice
the
coming
penguin.
in.
Yeah.
And that was one thing I was going to say too. Is when I first was watching this, I didn't have I was watching it dubbed, and I didn't have subtitles on, and then there's a couple of other visions, I can't remember whichever ones, but this was one of them where if they're speaking in a non-basic language and the subtitle comes up, it's going to be in Japanese, so you have to turn on English subtitles if you want to see what they're saying. There was the Rodian, who is the one that called in the Crusaders because he was calling.
Oh, was that it? I was so confused about that.
Yeah, that was the Rodian.
Was the one part that
at least the subtitles said in Rodianese or whatever it said.
Yeah.
So, there was a couple other times too. So, yeah, no. Overall, it was a lot of fun. I think. Yeah, I did watch all of this. Like I have FOMO, so I was like, I've got to watch it all opening day. So I did watch all of Visions, and this is one of I think in my top 3 for the season. I think it's I don't know if we're going to talk more about Visions today or we'll save it, but I think it's definitely one of my. I think it was my favorite of the sequels that we got from the original season. So
I have not seen any of the others of this season yet. So.
Yeah.
I've been pacing myself.
Right.
Because I had to rewatch all the other ones. So it's like...
I just have FOMO, and I'm like, if I don't watch it as soon as it's available, I'm gonna get spoiled online. So like I've got to watch it and see what's going on. So
yeah, I personally I think my favorite thing was seeing all the mods to the Sith Twi'lek's body, the crazy thing she lightsaber thing she had, and then all of a sudden the leg lightsaber suddenly that managed just to give them the upper hand they needed to win the day on the super fast teleporting
Yeah, because the Grandmaster stabs the Ronin, like, not fatally, but stabs him. But it's up to...
it's that Star Wars thing. I only stabbed you in the kidney, so you're all right. You know,
yeah. Only if you're Qui-Gon and gets stabbed right in the middle, that destroys your spinal cord.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Whatever.
Oh, and one other thing I remember.
Magic.
Back to Hot Spring.
Yeah.
That was interesting. I was like, really? I was like...
Well, that's something from the Legends, that Bacta is it's almost like it's kind of an analog to honey that's created by, I forget the name of the species, but there's an insectoid species that makes Bacta.
Oh, okay.
And it's like that. So I was kind of like, okay, I can kind of see like maybe those aliens were putting it out in the water, but of course that was Legends. So
right,
I don't think they've really established what one way or the other.
Whenever they mention Bacta now, I just think of that thing from the Clone Commando video games where you heal yourself and the guy goes, "Nothing like Bacta." I always just thought that was so weird.
Yeah. Well, and there was that one novel in the Legends where there was a main character who was allergic to Bacta, and
right,
all the cybernetics because he couldn't heal. I always thought that was an interesting concept. If you have this miracle drug, what's the balance on that?
There's going to be at least some people who can't take it. You know, allergic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I'm allergic to penicillin, so. Yeah, I know. It's basically half of all. I'm allergic to half of all antibacterials. So far, it hasn't killed me.
Well, maybe you'll just be replaced and become a cyborg.
Yep. Go on my crusade for justice. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps this episode up. We've got a whole bunch more coming with Visions, and I'm looking forward to walking through it with you guys. So, any final comments, words? There wasn't any music, or not much.
I didn't notice the music, honestly. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, nothing final here. Just I just want to give a shout out. My favorite ones are from the season are this one, Bounty Hunters, and Bird of Paradise, which that one is not seemingly one of the ones that's been a favorite among fans. So I'm curious when we get to it what people think, but I think Bounty Hunters might have been my favorite one of the season. So
interesting.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode of The Secrets of Star Wars. We'd like to take a moment to thank all of our patrons who make the show possible, including Louis B., Alan P., Scott L., James H., and Christoph K. Their generous donations help us to create The Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows here at StarQuest, and you can join them at sqpn.com/give. And now we'd like to hear from you, our listeners. What did you think of the Duel, Payback, and Visions Season 3? You can let us know by sending us an email at StarWars@sqpn.com, on our social media pages, or by leaving a comment on our super fun and awesome channel on the StarQuest Discord server, which you can find at sqpn.com/Discord. Until next time, thank you, Thomas Salerno, for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
Oh, thank you so much, Pat.
Very welcome, and thank you, Jeff Hecker.
Thanks, Pat.
And once again, I'm Patrick Mason, and thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy, The Catholics of Oz. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found, or at sqpn.com/Oz.